Well folks, welcome back to the workshop. Today we have one of the newer Paslode nail guns on for repair. This is the Paslode 360 XI, the newer version of the IM350 CI. This is the full round head Paslode gas nailer. This one is on for a repair and a full service, so I thought I may as well do a full video of how to strip, service and repair a Paslode 360 CI gas nail gun. Compared to other Paslode nail guns or any gas nail gun, there's not an awful lot to it. There's not an awful lot different compared to some of the older models. Basically the same type of gun, just with a few things changed inside. This here 360, the main things was changed as they started cheaping out a few of the parts up here, scaling down on a few bits and pieces. Must be to reduce costs. And they changed the location of the battery, plus the mount for the actual magazine, because this magazine is removable, just like the older 360 CI. There's a quick release for that. Now the battery location down here in the bottom looks handier, but it makes the gun very long and it's not really the best positions, because whenever this is sitting on a rafter or on your belt, it's basically just a water trap for the battery if you're out in the rain. So some boys really don't like that. Some have had problems already destroying batteries because of water. Other than that, they're a good gun, they're good and powerful, reasonably reliable, but obviously you're going to still have to send them on for the odd service. Compared to the older 350s, you're not going to get the same length of time out of them. They are more powerful, so you're going to wear some parts out that little bit quicker. Service it, same as any Paslode. First you just have to strip it down. Now the other problem with this gun, the repair, that's just the magazine. The spring's gone, so we have to replace that. But everything else, it's just a standard service. And it's definitely due a service. That's one of the problems with these here 360 guns, this one and the older one, because they are that little bit more powerful. They're not all that powerful, they're just putting in more gas. A little bit of extra gas gives it a bigger bang. That bigger bang generally is going to get hotter, burns up a lot of the oil inside, burns it completely, and leaves a very hard tar residue like this here. So like any gun, this here can build up. The main problem is back here inside the chamber. This is where it gets the hottest. So the oil that you put under the gun and the oil that's on the gas eventually starts getting burnt away and actually burning into a tar and leaving a residue on the inside of the chamber. So you'll notice when you go to service these guns, the piston's bone dry and you hear it scraping down the inside wall of the firing chamber. That's because all the oil's gone and it's just left now tar residue. Barely any lubrication is inside the piston, which can then lead to problems with retracting the pin. If you're ever using them, shooting the nail only fires every maybe second nail, keeps misfiring. It's not always to do with the reed valve, it can actually be to do with no oil being inside of here. That tar residue can build up so much and be so dry inside that it takes too much force to actually retract the pin, and it's getting stuck halfway up. So sometimes a little bit of oil inside of here can fix that problem, but eventually you will have to service it. It's fairly tidy in here. All these parts are basically the same as the IM350 CI, the older version. Most of them are interchangeable. Main difference, like I was saying, is just the location of the battery. Instead of being tucked under here, it's just stretched all the way down here, just in this long wire. So your battery terminal is now sitting down on here, but you get the same spark unit, same switch assembly and trigger. Everything else is basically the same. Same gas regulator, It's just the location of the battery and the magazine. That's what they mainly changed down on here. Up here in the firing chamber, what they've changed is actually the head, the nail guide up here. Basically skimped out a little bit. I've scaled back the actual steel part here, which was always quite weak anyway. These here pins tended to break off, so now they've actually scaled it back and made it smaller. It does make the gun a little bit lighter, but the advantages of that is lost because this here is going to be a little bit weaker. It's just not as rigid or as strong. Off your plate with this wee gas valve off this tube, gas feed. Just take off the plastic cover. It doesn't come off straight away like the older 360. Actual leg here gets snagged in the cover. You have to give it a wee squeeze to clear this. And on side, she is definitely due a service. Reed valve seems okay. You can see that sort of burnt oil residue. This is still oily here, it's not so bad. The pins, same size, but there's a different system for holding them, so they're less likely to break. Now, the rear chamber, more than likely the exact same. This is the new system for holding the pins. A little bit more solid because they're longer, they're a bit more stable. That's a bit better, but when opening the gun and closing it, they are just sitting there, so they tend to spring off like they just did. Now the actual yoke here that holds the probe up on top, that's also changed to fit this new head. That's a little bit better designed. Instead of just the probe hooking onto the head, she's actually hooked on back here as well. So it doesn't just rely on the probe, it's the entire assembly that's holding it on. So it's a lot more stable. As you can see, when this is taken off, this head itself is very, very small, very thin. Maybe made of steel and save a little bit of weight, but I would rather have the bulk of the material there to have a stronger head. Like I say, the older ones had a tendency to break these pins off. I would imagine they're going to break off that little bit more now because of that, they're smaller head. But even with one pin missing, it's not the end of the world. You can still rely on just the one. Now, this is the main problem you get with these guns. The piston inside of this chamber will normally be bone dry. That one's not even that bad actually. You get a lot worse than that. But it is dry, just doesn't sound terrible. There's not a stitch of oil inside of there. That's always been the problem with these 360s. Not just because of the sound of it, whenever you go to service it then, makes it very difficult to get that clean. See that sort of brown residue. That brown residue inside is actually burnt in oil. It's like tar and it's very, very difficult to get off. Normal cleaning fluid or kerosene that I use in the parts washer will not touch it. It'll still remain there. The only way to get it off is with something stronger like paint thinners. And I've already done 2 of these here guns today. I've been using thinners already. The place is actually stinking. And sadly I have to use it again now for this one. So I've got the 2 doors open here in the workshop to help clear the smell out so the fumes don't overpower me. Now if you compare this new chamber to the old one, you can really see how much they've scaled back. So not just this head, the chamber as well, all the cooling fans, these extra pieces here for keeping the gun cool, have all been taken away. So this is a hell of a lot lighter than this here, and not in a good way. So in other words, the newer one can overheat a lot quicker than the older one. And that is what the pan normally sounds like. Good squeal out of it. Forget about that. So that is what you're paying more money for. The 360 CX. They've reduced a lot of parts, made everything a lot thinner, cheaper and easier to manufacture, but they charge you a lot more money. And just like the older 360, they're still stuck with the old O-rings. So even though the older IM350s had steel rings, and then the 350 Plus had steel rings throughout, on the piston, the chamber, and on the fan back here, the cylinder head, these IM360s went back the way. The steel rings and the piston still, but they went for O-rings on the chamber and the cylinder head. So these eventually wear out, and they cost €22 a piece. They're expensive to replace. The steel rings, these here, never wear out. They last for the lifetime of the gun. So you can imagine why they've went back to the O-rings instead of sticking with the steel rings like the IM350s. Paslode, they're good guns, they last, but they're after nothing but money from you. Now before I repair this bit, I'm actually just going to clean everything out first. Wash it all down in the parts washer, get rid of all the old grease, get rid of thinners, and clean off this old tar residue inside of here. I'm going to clean it in the parts washer, but the parts washer also hasn't been cleaned out in some time, so it ain't looking the best, to be honest. And that looks surprisingly worse than this, but still, I'll still clean it. I'm not lying. This thing is in a bad state. It's overdue a clean. I've actually asked in the comments if I could do a video on cleaning it, so I do give it a clean. I might do a full video and a full strip and clean of the parts washer too. That'll be for another day. Even the flow coming out of it, very, very weak. Too much gunge down in the bottom, blocking everything up. Same as the older one. Back chamber can be cleaned no problem. It just washes off. Down in here's normally where it gets the worst bit. Even still, cleans away quite easily. It's the top chamber here, it always gives the hassle. Outside's fine. The inside just does not want to come off. So I'm going to get that gunk air off. The thinners. That will eventually start to strip it away. Thinners is not the type of thing you want to be breathing in the workshop. Highly carcinogenic, and there's nothing but bad for you. That is the only thing that seems to strip off that hard residue. Anyway, I'll stick at this, see if I can get it cleaned out. Now, we're all washed out, ready to go, and the chamber starting to look clean again. Still not perfect. They're mainly score marks now because of how dry these things get. But the tar residue is off, so we're ready to go start rebuilding this thing. And as well, because that tar builds up, hard sticky residue, the steel rings in this piston are scraping down against it. So as they're going up and down, They're scraping some of it off and embedding it onto the piston in here. So generally you'll find these tracks for the ring very black. So you might have to just scrape them out so that the seal can get the whole way on. Don't be shy with the oil on these particular guns. Get plenty in there. They're going to need it. O-rings and this are fine. They're not worn out at all, so they'll do for now. Don't need to replace them for every service. Only when they break or have a flat edge on them and they're not getting a proper seal. If your gun doesn't fire at all, it could be a broken O-ring. If it's firing but only burying the nail a little bit or not burying it fully, it could be a worn out O-ring. It's losing pressure. Only a couple of surfaces need to be oiled. Just the surfaces in contact with each other and removing past each other. So this is where the cylinder head O-ring slides into, so that needs to be oiled. And then the chamber O-ring, this one here, will be making contact on this here side here, in this area. So we want all the way back here oiled, and this here. The rest of the inside isn't essential to be oiled, it's not making contact with anything. But as the gun's running, the oil inside the gas has been taken out, these will get coated as well. But for initial startup, that's all you really need. There's your dust shield for the back. This just helps prevent some of the dust and grime getting down to the front of the gun. And your piston or firing pin, same as the older models, will have a chamfer on one side. Make sure that faces down towards the nails. So it should be facing up this way. Line up your pin with this middle slot down here. And then just guide it out up at the top. That's what you want it to sound like. Not squealing at you. The old model, these here guides clicked on, and behind this here yoke, now they actually sit on the top. And obviously they're just sitting there, so they'll just fall off again if you're not holding it. They're only going to be locked on when they're sitting inside the back chamber. On your springs, make sure they're sitting correctly. These wee plastic feet, lock them in down here. Set that up, hold it in place. This little piece sticking out the back here, the back chamber, that's facing the back of the gun. This here's the top where the reed valve is. So it goes on that way there. You can fit this upside down, which would be a pain. So make sure you get this at the bottom. Your pins then go through this plastic insert holding the spring and everything, and your body. So this locks the two halves together. Same as the older one. And your cover, to squeeze it to get past this wee piece down here. But also your gas line has to come out through this hole. So you can generally just fish it out with a small flat screwdriver. Same as the other ones. Top cover and a few bolts. You don't want to put Loctite on these, otherwise you'll have a hard time servicing this the next time. Get all them socket heads started so they're on the right thread. Stem on for your regulator, and just put a wee touch of oil on them O-rings just to keep them good. Set your chamber loosely up here, lift up your regulator, push on your gas line. Then you can locate it into these notches on the other side. And just watch the trigger, get the spring in as well. Another plastic cover for this side. And your motor, or cylinder head at the back. There's two wee missing pieces here. That's to locate into the cover here. This goes in at an angle to clear the cover. And just twist it into place. Everything else just pushes down and sits in place. And lastly, your top cover, or your back cover, with your actual filter built into it. That's the gun. Now, I like to do the quick repair, which is on the magazine. It's only the spring that's gone, so it's just a replacement part we need. All you do is take out these 3 screws, that's all that's holding this together, and just open it up. So one side you got your top, front metal piece, your nail guide, the plastic cover. That's it. Same on this side, the other half of the plastic cover. Then your nail guide assembly here is what actually pushes up on your nails. Wee metal leg for pushing up your nails. Your nails stop up here whenever you run out of nails. This here stops the gun from being plunged down. A spring for clearing your nails. And then a spring inside, then a coil spring that actually pulls this back up again. Change the coil spring, we just need to take this off, which couldn't be easier to do. Simply pull on the push button to take back the lever, and it slides straight out. That's it. Now all we need is a coil spring to sit up inside of here. I just hope I still have one left. Nope, wrong one. That's for the IM350. 350 is a little bit different. This hooks on to a pin. It's the actual lip. Spot welded on. So that's no good to me. That's looking better. As for the newer guns, aren't spot welded, they're hooking on to a piece of plastic at the top. They need to be opened. That's what we want. To fit it, could not be easier. That's it. Just slides on there. Nothing holding it in, it's just the tension of the spring keeping it pulled up. Just have it sitting to one side with this leg sticking out, and then reinstall it onto this here plastic cover. Just as you're putting it on, make sure the little hook slides onto the cover up here. That's it. Once you pull it down, the spring's engaged up here. It's already installed. And once you let go of the spring down here, this wee lever, it locks into place. It won't come out again. It only comes out if you lift that lever up. That's her. Simple as that. And to reinstall this cover, it actually sits inside of this track here on this metal front piece. Put it on like you were closing a book. It doesn't drop in, it actually has to fold in. Just pull down your nail feed as you're putting it on. And that's it. That's it closed. And again, 3 screws just to keep it closed. Couldn't be easier than that. That's her. One Paslode 350 XI serviced, and the magazine nail feed spring replaced. Now to make sure she actually fires. That's all the nails I have left. There's a few 90s as well. Test a lot of them. Ready to go. Now, because she's like the older 360, it has a gas regulator inside of it. She needs to be primed 2 or 3 times before she fire. Should go now. That's her. One new Paslode 360 XI serviced and repaired. It's not all that difficult to do. It's quite simple. Paslode, like I say, I've scaled back this gun They've reduced the size of some of the components, but they've also tried to get rid of as many individual components as possible. So instead of like a rear cover, a filter and a cover for the filter, they just have the filter built onto the rear cover. Things like that there. So there's a lot less components inside the actual gun, so making it easier to strip down and rebuild. Most difficult part about it is actually just washing it out, trying to get all the parts inside cleaned. Actual strip and rebuild is fairly straightforward. So if you have one of these guns at home, or if you're doing this here for a living, that's how you strip and rebuild the 360. Now what are the guns like? Would I recommend these Paslode guns, these 360s? I myself, no, wouldn't really recommend them, to be quite honest. They're not that great. A wee bit more power, but they just don't have the last. Certain parts wear out them far too quickly. The likes of the actual electronics inside, they don't actually wear out, they start failing due to water ingress because there's so many connectors for them. And the wee fine connectors, eventually moisture starts getting to them and they corrode and break. Quite common on them. They're meant to be used outside roofing, but they really don't like water all that much. So they don't tend to last an awful long time. Certain parts just start to fail fairly soon. And because certain parts are failing in them, you obviously need to get them repaired or replaced. And the replacement parts for these particular guns are very expensive. The actual spark unit over here is about 150 quid. And not just if the spark unit failed, the switches are built into it as well. So if they fail, you also still need to replace the whole spark unit. Controller unit over here, that's another 100 or 150. And the main reason why I don't like these guns is the gas regulator. So these cylinders of gas actually cost about 30 or 35 euro a piece. And they're not that special. There's nothing really special about them for them to be that price. So old gas costs about a tenner a piece. And on top they have a regulator, as in every time you press this down, it only lets out a certain amount of gas that is specifically designed to fire inside the chamber to get a shot. These have no gas regulator. This is just an open system. Once you press this on, all the gas comes out. The gas regulator is the electro valve inside of here. That's what actually measures out the gas. So every time you change one of your old gas and your old IM350s, you got a new regulator. These here new 360s, every time you put on a new gas, you're reusing the old regulator. So eventually it will wear out, and that costs another 150 euro. That's why I never actually liked these guns. Never liked that electro valve regulator inside. It's always going to cost more money to repair these things. Plus the actual price of the gas themselves and the nails were always far too expensive. For a gas gun, you're far better off going with the older Paslode IM350. It's now called the IM350X. Still available, still a good gun. And they also use the same battery, the lithium batteries. That's a better gun. These here are a little bit more expensive, a little bit more power, but they just don't have the last. They're more expensive to buy, they're more expensive to actually keep feeding with nails and gas. So I've never really recommended them, to be quite honest. You're out more money on nails and on gas, and for no real benefit. They're more expensive to run these here guns than the older ones, so I never really liked them. Plus, if you want to check to see if they are any good or not, always check what they're going for second hand. Compare these here to IM350s on any buy and sell website. You'll find that these here are up for sale and they can't be gotten rid of. The IM350s are selling for massive money, and they're selling. Nobody wants these guns second hand. They're only good for somebody like a big contractor who's buying in a pallet of nails at a time. They're getting a whole pallet of nails and probably getting one of these here for free as well. It makes sense to them. But even when they go to sell them again second hand, nobody wants them because the nails and the gas is just too expensive. So nobody wants them. Somebody wanting a second hand Paslode wants the IM350 instead. But that is how you service them if you have one yourself, or if you're looking to service them for somebody else. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was helpful for you. Give us a wee like and a follow and a comment down below. Cheers. Thanks.